So, welcome to the Required podcast. Today we have Andrew Webster, who is from the newly named WorkWelll Enterprise. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for having me.
So, WorkWelll Enterprise, what were they previously known as?
WorkWelll Enterprise was previously known as Worker Compliance. Worker Compliance was a business unit part of Worker Group that was acquired by previously JSA in April last year, and I came along with the transaction, and we went through a project of rebrand across group to have WorkWelll Group, and my part of the business is WorkWelll Enterprise.
Brilliant. For those who don't know you, what's your background? How did you end up in this elevated position doing enterprise sales?
Well, I came into this industry I'd call it intermediary accounting by accident. A good friend of mine was working at Hayes. He wasn't reaching his target for interviews that week. He asked me to go for an interview as a favour. I went over to Warrington, had an interview at Brookson. 3 interviews later, I got offered the job, and that was 19 years ago. And I've been in the murky world of intermediary accountancy and labour supply chain compliance ever since. So that's the truth. So
let me get this right. He was basically faking interview stats and actually made a placement out of you.
yeah, upon reflection, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. That's such a recruiter thing to do. Really enjoy that. So, IR35. I was speaking to Chris James on this very podcast 3-4 weeks ago. We were talking about the shock of the repeal, and there's now been a repeal of the repeal. So where does this leave everyone?
Gosh, how long do we have, Andy? So we had the announcement on the 23rd of September, the repeal of off payroll. It was not to be expected. We were expecting some form of consultation. The reaction from stakeholders in supply chain, being a client, agency, and contractor, was different throughout. And agency in particular this is great news for our recruitment drive and to attract talent and to supply talent to our end clients, because we can revert back to the rules that were. It's got nothing to do with us, which is great. We'll just focus on being really good recruiters. From an end client perspective, conversations I had, a lot of confusion around what does this actually mean for us, with all the work and the investment that we've done to understand and meet our responsibilities and deliver a methodology that is compliant and robust, etc. What do we do going forward? And from a contractor perspective, it was very obvious to see there was this renewed traction to PSCs, where historically contractor would have been deemed inside for IR35 purposes, and then going through agency PAY or umbrella, and then they could go through PSC. So from what I observed in the market, there was a lot of confusion, because on the 23rd of September with the repeal, it's gone. And what else is coming? My last point on it is that we were expecting guidance going into November around the nuances of what this actually meant. And then it was abolished.
So effectively, we went back to 2017 and went back to 2022 as if nothing happened. It's like that Men in Black thing where they just flash it, we just forget where it was.
Yeah, that is a really good analogy. Men in Black, great film, love it. In all fairness, in that 3-week period, it gave me in particular time to reflect on what it actually meant. What does it mean? What will the revenue be doing? So I didn't really see much commentary on what the inland revenue would potentially be doing 6th of April 23 if the repeal had stood. And some of my thinking led to potential risk and continued responsibility for recruitment agency and end client, which at the time, where people were thinking, great, we're going back to the good old days, there's still lots of stuff that needed to happen. But yeah, unfortunately, it was abolished, wasn't it?
So I guess where we are back in, where we were in 21, where we certainly were in 22, you advise firms on the supply chain. What's the big behavioural change you've seen since the private sector reforms came in? We've seen blanket bans. We've seen some companies doing proper assessment. Where did the market go after 21?
So this is specific to the private sector. It's a separate conversation on public, I think. where did the market go? You had a cohort of end clients that really rolled their sleeves up and did a chunk of work and understood what they needed to do because they could see the benefits of doing that, notwithstanding the responsibility under the legislation. And in particular, that cohort end client really wanted to work with their recruitment partners for all the right reasons. So I've appointed Agency X as my MSP or my on my PSL of agencies to supply. This is my pipeline of projects. These are the talents and skills I need. This is the experience I need. I could take the easy option and say blanket decision, and it's PAY and umbrella, but I won't. It's highly unlikely I'm going to attract the talent that I want because they're predominantly white-collar PSC contractors. Or what I'll do is I'll go away and seek some third-party impartial advice, such as WorkWelll Enterprise or others in the market, and roll my sleeves up and do a chunk of work. And if I do that work, then there's a higher probability that I can attract that talent on the agreed day rates or hourly rates and the margins I agree with agencies. And being brutally honest, Andy, that was a really good place to be. Really good place to be. Over here, there were those that thought, right, it's too complicated. We're so risk averse. Let's make blanket decisions, or let's just have it mandatory. It's PAY and umbrella. And there was a sense, in my opinion, that it was a case of Mr. Agency, like it or lump it. Okay, if someone is supplying to us, you deal with all that rigmarole with the contractors who'd historically been PSC, now have to go umbrella or PAYE, nothing to do with us. And I still want you to supply the talent at the agreed rates, at the agreed margin, at the agreed SLAs. And that was just a minefield and a mess. And we predicted some of this, Andy, in terms of the outcomes of the changes and some of the cultural changes within end clients and agency relationship in particular.
Yeah, so did we see a sort of drain away from talent from those companies that were not prepared, as your words, to roll their sleeves up and do it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it was upon reflection, it was frustrating because within WorkWelll Enterprise, we have a proven proposition, a methodology that is a mix of people, process, technology, and expertise. So it wasn't just a platform. So we saw existing organizations introduce a status platform or market an existing platform, and it was tech focused. And what we have said to all of our private sector clients is that what we have is the core proposition. We will tweak it to meet your objectives, but one of the key objectives is that you need to continue to work with your recruitment partners. What we do cannot hinder your ability to attract the talent, but also retain the talent for you to deliver your projects. And that's a key point.
One of the unintended consequences of the mini budget, and there's been mini budget, mini repeal, Halloween budget that's no longer now be an autumn statement, but 23rd of September was the change in NIC contributions. And I'm hearing around the campfire, there's a number of end clients are saying, well, the NIC contributions have moved down now. Effectively, can we change the rate? That's going to be quite a difficult one for agencies to deal with, isn't it?
I think you're right. I think where those, and not all end clients are as savvy as some, Andy. There are those that are fully aware of that possibility. I'm aware of a handful of discussions with their recruitment supply chain around that point, and others regarding rates and any commercial framework. There are those that aren't aware of that as yet, but I'm sure as it gains some momentum in the marketplace, there'll be continued discussion. And it will become quite a difficult and problematic conversation to be had, I think, notwithstanding everything else that has to be done with that recruitment supply to the end client through their agency partners.
With the sort of worker determination piece, do you see it becoming, the UK becoming more like a states model where PEOs become a lot more prevalent, agencies run their own payrolls, et cetera, or end customers just start running their own contingent worker payrolls? Though in the States, people are so scared of being the deemed employee, they want it as far away from their books as possible.
Yeah, I think the question I think you are asking is in context of the broader labour supply chain compliance piece. IR35 is one element of it here in the UK. With regards to North America and the way in terms that labour supply chain is structured from a compliance and supply perspective, I'm seeing the beginnings of some change within the UK supply chain to mirror elements of North America. One in particular is the employer of record element, EOR. We as an organisation have discussions with end clients around employer of record. What is it? What are the benefits to us? What are the benefits to labour supply chain? What does good look like? And if I were to have 10 conversations a week at the moment, I would say 3 of them are with end clients about that point, but also the broader labour supply chain compliance element. And the other 7 conversations are with traditional recruitment agencies that want to understand for the right reasons where they fit appropriately within the UK labour supply chain in terms of what are my responsibilities under both direct and indirect legislation. I want to understand all the guidance notes, but I want to understand it in the context of my business and the way I want to grow within the UK. We won't talk about international, but UK centric. But I also want to get closer to my own clients because it's becoming increasingly competitive to retain clients, to be seen to be adding genuine value other than the core competence of recruitment. And I would say to any UK recruitment agency that want to retain and attract their clients, they have to look at ways in which to get closer to them. And this broader labour supply chain compliance piece is a hot topic at the moment.
I remember in 2017 when we ran the public sector changes through, we were speaking to people, head of trusts, head of departments. It's a massive. We'd never got near. They'd never been interested in having a conversation with us. It was quite transactional. We obviously got them people. We had a good relationship from that, but being valued, trusted partners, it was a real opportunity for us, and I wouldn't, to add value to their organisation. And I guess that's what you're saying agencies can be doing right now.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? I've sold to and serviced the UK recruitment sector for 20 years, and I'm not claiming to be a recruiter and understand it intimately like you, Andy, and other peers of yours, but I have a good understanding of it now. And there is an element of, we do a load of hard work to attract the client, and we put in a tender, we secure the work, and then it sits within the recruitment team, the consultants, and they do their whiz-bang recruitment stuff, and aren't we great? And then people sit back and go, oh, right, okay, how else can we add value and move away from just transactional? And I do feel for those recruiters that genuinely want to not only focus on core competence that won them the bid, for example, but what are the other things that we can do? And what we try and do with our recruitment partners is to collaborate genuinely with them to go to their end clients and say, we're wanting to get a broader understanding of the risk in UK labour supply chain. We know the Inland Revenue are enforcing. They know they have a strategy. We know at some point they may come and have a conversation with you. And as your trusted recruitment partner, we're collaborating with WorkWelll Enterprise, for example, on methodology, proposition solutions for a robust and compliant labour supply chain. And it's a conversational piece. And as you will know, Andy, these conversations are protracted. It's a long-term discussion. And you need to speak to the right people. You eventually get access to those senior people that you would never got access to. So people within tax, within legal, within procurement, who really want to understand what is it we want to do and how do we do it with our existing recruitment partner and a third-party impartial business such as WorkWelll Enterprise.
How do you get around the bit where agencies are nervous about introducing you? Because it's a bit like, oh, we're holding the magic, we know all this. And the moment we introduce this guy, who really knows it, and this company that really know it, why do they need us?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I can only speak on behalf of WorkWelll Enterprise and the team at Watford and over at Chester, and we make it very clear to our recruitment partners that it's a general collaboration. It's your client. Let's just be really clear about that. If you can see and understand and agree the value that we can potentially bring, and it removes that responsibility of you having to do all of that, and you can focus on what you're really good at, your whiz-bang recruitment, then we can genuinely collaborate. And we go through a process like any sales process, and we involve the recruitment agency at every stage, categoric guys, because ultimately, if the end client does procure services, there's certain activities within the project delivery that need involvement from the recruitment partner. They're the fee payer. Isn't it in the interest of the fee payer to understand what methodology the end client has procured to determine status for IR35 purposes? So when the SDS is given to the agency as a fee payer, they can very quickly agree to that SDS, if they wish, by the way, rather than saying, hang on a minute, it's come from CEST, who did that? What's their understanding of IR35? How did they arrive? All that convoluted stuff that would hinder the ability to onboard the contractor in a timely manner. So that's what we do.
I guess the other thing is, if you're not doing it as an agency, your competitors might be. And then, rather than, you worry about, sort of almost giving up that relationship, but someone can come and usurp you with it. I guess there are a number of tenders in at the moment with some quite reputable brands within the UK, within defence and aerospace, and there are your atypical MSP brands that we would be very familiar with are going in there claiming to know anything and everything about labour supply chain compliance. And bless them, I admire them for trying. I really do. But there's certain elements of what they're talking about in context of labour supply chain compliance that are incorrect. And it's a reflection of, for me, them trying to be everything and anything to the end client, because we want the business. But what I want to say to those recruiters is, if there's 10 parts to what you do in your proposition, if 7 of them are around the recruitment process, then focus on those 7. Be really, really good at what you do. Because I've had the luxury of speaking to hiring managers across a variety of sectors over the past few years. And one common theme that comes from them is a frustration with incumbent recruiters that either don't understand the role that they're asking them to go and get, or the time in which it takes to recruit that particular role and those skills. And if that agency in that example focused on those 7 elements of recruitment and left those 3 to someone like us, then that collaboration would work really effectively. And we see that in some of our clients. We've got a couple of case studies where their ability to attract talent, onboard them against SLAs in a very timely manner, having collaborated with us, particularly around IR35, so that of competitors in the same sector that haven't. It's just a really positive process and case study we have. Yeah, I think most recruiters just, almost just want to do the deal and then have someone else just take everything away. And that's great. That's, and to go back to your point, when I started in recruitment many, many moons ago, the job was actually a lot less complicated. You didn't have as many communication methods. You didn't, you didn't have as much choice with the candidates. So when you're placing contractors, it was literally the person that could spell the technology that would, probably have, out of your limited get the role. So, but now there's so much data to take in. There's so many processes to do. Obviously, the legislation, the amount of checks you have to do. So actually doing the job of recruitment, that actual aspect is so much less these days. And I appreciate I sound like Uncle Albert during the war, but I actually look at recruiters now and think what a complicated job it was compared to certainly when I was doing it, when I joined the industry in 99.
Yeah, I think that's a fair observation. As I'm listening to you there, I'm thinking of a particular recruitment agency based out of Fareham, and they have an abundance of resource and knowledge within compliance. I'll just call it compliance, and for all the right reasons, they've put in certain processes within the business to meet certain obligations under a variety of legislation. And then in the other building over here, you've got the recruiters who are just going a million miles an hour, want to recruit, and they're doing a really good job. But then when it comes to onboarding, then there's that bottleneck in a lot of cases. And I can see frustration. I hear frustration in exactly that. I've gone away and done what I've been asked to do because I'm a really good recruiter. And then we've got all this compliance mess over here that I know I have to do, but it's just hindering the ability to get that contractor on site pretty damn quick. Because what naturally happens is, and you'll have more experience than me, Andy, is that when an agency engages with a contractor around a particular role or project, they go through the recruitment process. Andy Webster Limited says, yeah, I want to do that role, sorry. And then there's all this onboarding. Some contractors question, why do I have to do this? And why do I have to do that? The other agency doesn't do that. The other agency doesn't do this. And that's where the bottleneck occurs. So there's a fine balance, isn't there, with the compliance and operational delivery element and going off and recruiting and doing what a lot of recruiters do really, really well.
Yeah, 100%. So effectively, WorkWelll Enterprise now, if you're an agency and you want to impress your customer and you partner up with agencies, you'll help them for enterprise opportunities. And, I guess, how can people find you and talk to you about coming to help them?
Yeah, it's what we do. Our main focus as WorkWelll Enterprise in terms of route to market is for our agency partners. We have those good relationships that are long-standing through contacts and the business, and we have that discussion like we had a few moments ago. What is it we want to do? What does collaboration look like? It's great that we're on your umbrella PSL. Thank you very much, or your CIS, self-employed PSL, but there's a lot more to WorkWelll Group. I use the analogy of an agency going shopping. If there's 10 elements to what we do as a group, they may want 1, 4, 8, and 10. What does that look like operationally, account management, commercial-wise? So we can have a framework for agencies to work to, one of which is WorkWelll Enterprise. What we do, we collaborate with our agency partners and we allow them to understand what we do and how it adds value to them as an organisation, but taking us to their end clients as impartial third-party advisors on not only just IR35, which is the hot topic and will be for a while, but the broader labour supply chain compliance piece, because we know that the revenue are focusing on enforcement at an engaged level, and we have continued discussion around potential risk under the Criminal Finance Act.
Also, as well, if I'm an end hirer sat in their legal or accountancy or compliance division, you'll work directly with end clients as well to just, they can hire you. You're a gun for hire to.
Yeah, we're a gun for hire, Andy. Yeah, we have had a number of, quite a few actually, end clients come to us directly, which is absolutely fine. But throughout that process, if we are successful, we naturally ask, tell me about your recruitment supply chain. And in a lot of cases, and this is me not exaggerating the truth, we already know those recruitment businesses. And so it makes that process a lot easier. I think the scale of WorkWelll Group affords that probability a lot higher than other organisations. Across the group, we've got the umbrella element, we've got CI self-employed, we've got back office, we've got accounting, we've got international. So there are a minimum 60, 70 individuals on a daily basis talking to, engaging with UK recruitment agencies. So yes, that's what we do. We do have those own clients coming to us directly sometimes.
Sounds great. Right. So if people want to get hold of you, what's your email address?
My email address is andrew.webster@workwellsolutions.com. Please send me a message. Happy to have an exploratory meeting, a coffee, a discussion around broad labour supply chain compliance, what that looks like going into Christmas 2022 after the abolition of the repeal, but also a specific discussion around IR35 and what good looks like from a solution perspective as you as the fee payer, and what benefits that could bring to your end client relationships.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time. Hopefully we're not speaking in a month, or might be speaking in a month's time about something else in terms of, maybe the autumn budget will throw up some, literally throw up some more work for you guys to do in the. I mean, tax used to be so boring and predictable and take years and move at a glacial speed. I mean, this shouldn't happen, but if it does change, Andrew, we'll get you back on, yeah?
Yeah, very quickly. That was my point to my pal who asked me to go do the interview. You want me to go for an interview to talk to people about tax evasion and composite limited companies? I didn't have a clue, but anyway, 20 years on. But thank you very much for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed this, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.